I think gaming has come such a long way in its 40 to 50 year history. We've gone from Waka 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 to expansive, explorable continents. And while I do really love delving into those meaty RPGs from time to time, I think that the gaming industry has become bloated, with games that themselves are also bloated. I'm Ouroboros. Let's talk. Okay, let's get this out of the way. I don't dislike long games. Take a look at the games I talk about. Persona, Zelda, Monster Hunter, Xenoblade, all are massively enormous experiences which I've spent thousands of hours of my life playing. Persona 5 Royal is my favorite game of all time, and that's a story-driven single-player game that takes well over 100 hours to finish. I love delving into these elaborately constructed worlds, but at the same time, look at the other games I talk about. I've sung high praises for games like Metroid and Ori, not only for their execution of typical gaming elements, but also their length, or rather, lack thereof. We've gotten to the point where games are getting absurdly expensive to develop. There are teams full of hundreds of developers, plus marketing people, playtesters, composers. It's a lot. And these development costs, which have skyrocketed, have surprisingly not been passed down onto the consumer very much. Well, at least not on the upfront costs. The problem is that companies now need to entice potential buyers using any means necessary. And the most common way to do that is to make games look big and shiny. Put loads of time into making sure all of the consumers know just how much bang for their buck they're getting. Unfortunately, it tends to be quantity bang for your buck, not quality bang for your buck. Games have gotten longer and longer, and as a result, they've become diluted. Look at a game like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. Two games which I adore, by the way, but they've taken the Zelda formula and stretched it out. They've taken what used to be a 30-hour journey and turned it into a 100-hour journey. That 30 hours of content now has to last 3 times as long. That's really hard to compensate for from a development perspective. And before anyone says it in the comments, yes, I know those two games have radically different design philosophies from their predecessors, but they are representative of the change in the development landscape over the past decade or so. But the point is that these games can start to feel stagnant once you reach a certain point. You're dropped into this fantastical new world. You've got all of these new tools and mechanics at your disposal. You're like a kid in a candy store with a vast array of sandbox elements, but then your enjoyment plateaus. You stop getting new upgrades, and every new challenge can begin to feel formulaic as you settle into your own little personal meta. I've said this in multiple videos before. Wait, why haven't I just made this into a video at this point? That's one of the reasons I'm not the biggest fan of Hollow Knight. You get upgrades so slowly in that game, and that's one of the best parts of a Metroidvania. You should feel like you're constantly evolving your arsenal, but I just never felt like I really used a ton of the new abilities it gives you. I'm not saying Hollow Knight is a bad game, far from it, but those previously mentioned plateaus happen far more often than if the game would have been compressed down to something, say, the size of one of the Ori games. Both Ori games are short. You'll probably only need 10 hours to complete and maybe 20 hours to 100% them. In a world of games going big or going home, Ori stands out as a small, intimate experience. It's from a studio that's willing to say, hey, we don't need the biggest, we don't need the best. We just want to make this awesome game and share it with you for just a little bit. They have the confidence to put out a product that doesn't tick off all of the required boxes. They let the experience speak for itself. And that sincerely confident bravado seeps into the game experience. Imagine if you took the entirety of Hollow Knight and distilled it into a game a third of the length. It's like a Coke fountain. Hollow Knight is when the machine is running out of syrup and you end up with that super watered down Coke. Ori is like you're drinking straight syrup. Okay, that was a bad example. We're just gonna move on. You get the idea though. It's condensed down, so the progression feels lightning fast in these games. You're always moving on to the next mechanic, the next area, the next story beat, the next big idea. As soon as you start to feel that plateau hitting, you're hit with something entirely new. It never stagnates. It's so rare that you get this AAA quality in such a small package. Imagine the quality games we'd get if other companies could distill their games into something this short. I just wish these types of games weren't restricted to mostly indie games. And I'll admit, I need to just dabble in the indie scene a little bit more. That's definitely a blind spot for me. But I'm really looking for more variety from the big publishers. Persona 5 was long as hell. I loved every minute of it, but I don't think I could play a game like that for the rest of my life. I want to experience more than just 2 or 3 games a year. That's one of the things I love about playing a wide variety of games. I'm able to enjoy all of these different styles and stories at my own pace, and adding some shorter games can help push that further. Plus, and this is something that everybody can get on board with, it'll make games cheaper. I don't think anyone can argue with paying less for things we enjoy. And that will, in turn, allow us to experience even more new games. It's a positive feedback loop. They make shorter, cheaper games that are higher quality. The developers are hopefully treated better at work. We get to play more, higher quality games that are cheaper. That earns the companies more money, and they, in turn, start making more games that are shorter and higher quality. Again, I'm not saying that long games are inherently bad, but I think that companies have gotten so wrapped up in this monumental task of creating the biggest, most amazing game possible that they lose sight of just making a good game. A good game doesn't need to take 100 hours to finish. A good game doesn't need to have a massive open world to explore. Sometimes a good game can be beaten in just a short weekend. Sometimes a good game is just a good game. I think that's an issue that's not just exclusive to gaming. There are times when we get so focused on doing the most amazing thing ever, like being the best athlete or creating the best work of art, or even making the best YouTube video, that we forget that there are countless amazing things out there which are just good. There's only going to be one single best game ever, but there are hundreds, if not thousands, of good games. Games don't need to be long to be good, but they do need to be high quality to be good. Distilling a good game down into a fraction of itself can yield some incredible results. Games are too long now, and while I do love to sink my teeth into them from time to time, I always enjoy shorter games for their breakneck pace. Thanks for watching.